welcome to week 2 of Color Wonder, and today I'm going to show you a little quick video on mixing your own acrylic paint. So we've covered watercolor, which is ultimately the most complex of the two forms, requiring a few more ingredients than just binder and pigment, which is the case with the beautiful plant-based acrylic binder available from Natural Earth Paints and their beautiful quality pigment powders. So here I have mulled together some ultramarine blue, one of my favorite shades, and I'm going to load it into this Ziploc sealing kind of system bag. It doesn't have to be that brand name. And I am going to transfer it to my aluminum tube. You don't have to do this, but I found other ways were basically just messy and I wasted a lot. This way the paint gets transferred with less of it ending up on your countertop, and all the paint that is on the inside of the plastic bag is still totally wonderful to use, so you can use that up first before you even open your aluminum paint. So ultramarine blue is an interesting color. It is one of the most difficult to make, so we're lucky today that we don't have to actually make the pigment. Although lapis lazuli is thought of as a semi-precious stone, it's really a mixture of minerals. Its deep blue color is thanks to lazurite, while the delicate traceries of white and gold are silicates, including calcite and fool's gold, or iron pyrite, respectively. This is an excerpt from The Secret Lives of Color, written by Cassia St. Clair, one of the recommended books I include in the workbook, which is available on Etsy and is a great companion source while you are watching these videos. I hope you will download it and print it, and you can use it to keep your notes. So here I have put all of my beautiful ultramarine pigment and equal parts plant-based binder that's been mulled together, and I'm just going to gently squeeze it into the aluminum tube. Now, to save myself some hassle, I've propped it up in a tall, slim glass so that the tube doesn't wobble back and forth as I attempt to fill it. Now, of course, you don't want to fill it all the way to the top. You do want to leave about 1 inch or 2 space gap at the top so that you can fold it down and crimp the edges, thereby eliminating all the air and allowing it to be sealed shut. So you can definitely keep this at a nice room temperature. If you live in a hot, humid area, I would probably put them in the refrigerator, although they are not exposed to air. If you have a tendency to add water as you mix, which I don't recommend, and I've said a few times, but sometimes it ends up in there, I would recommend you use distilled water. Let's say you need it on your glass because your molding plate keeps drying out or something to that effect, but definitely don't add water to the mixing process because you're introducing an organic element that could potentially produce mold. Otherwise, these paints last at least 6 months to a year. I find I like to use my paint, so I only make paint when I want to use it. I don't like to make paint and then sit on it for months on end, which is often the case when we spend a lot of money on just store-bought synthetics that are cheap, and they don't really call us to action. They just kind of take up space. So when you're making your own paint, not only are you in a position to empower the process, you are also in a position to be more acutely aware of your environmental impact and how you can minimize that. So not having a bunch of paint in storage is a wonderful way not to trigger you into making excess art that you maybe isn't for yourself or as authentic, because it's just art that's generated as a stress offload of having too much paint and feeling guilty about it. So definitely don't want to encourage that. So now that we have our nice, beautiful ultramarine blue acrylic paint mixed up, you can go ahead and swatch it out. We're going to cover this in more detail, but I thought I would show you a quick swatch video of the watercolor and acrylic done in ultramarine blue. Both are the Natural Earth Paint sourced ultramarine blue pigment. You can use seashells. Those are wonderful for storing paint. I like to hot glue magnets to the bottom and keep them in tins so that they stay nice, and I can use the tin as my mixing tray. Another fun way we're going to cover is using juice lids, which are also made of metal. So I can put a magnet on the bottom, but I can use them for a wider brush and create bigger washes instead of having to mix on a separate surface. I have a stronger solution of paint to dip my brush in because it is so wide. Again, reading from Cassia St. Clair's The Secret Lives of Color. Nuggets of the stone, ultramarine blue, were used for decorative purposes in ancient Egypt and Sumeria, but no one seems to have used it as a pigment until much later. Not only is it difficult to grind, but because lapis contains so many impurities, the result can be disappointingly grayish. Turning it into a usable pigment is an exercise in extracting the blue lazurite. To do this, the finely milled stone is mixed with pitch, mastic, turpentine, and linseed oil or wax, and then heated together to form a paste. This is then kneaded in an alkaline lye solution, just as, wrote Cennini, you would work over bread dough. The blue would gradually wash out into the lye and sink to the bottom. It would take a few successive kneadings, each drawing out progressively grayer solutions to remove all the color. The final extraction would produce only a pallid color known as ultramarine ashes. So I, for one, as an artist, am absolutely grateful that creating my own paint does not involve all of the aforementioned steps, because that to me is like, might as well be making gold, right? Because the level of knowledge and time and commitment required to create the right recipe. I mean, we're not just baking a cake or cupcake here, friends. We're cooking rocks. We're making chemicals. We need certain temperatures for certain lengths of time. So we have it much easier than maybe our ancestor artists. So it behooves us maybe to make more use of our paint and to allow what we make to go further along and maybe to enjoy more of the process. So now that our ultramarine blue is safely transferred into a longer lasting storage container, you can rip open the plastic bag that you use to transfer it, and you can create swatches or paint straight onto your canvas surface or paper surface with the acrylic paint that you've made. It's 100% usable. That is the magic of acrylic paint. It's just 1-to-1 ratio. You can, of course, adjust if you'd like a more gloss-like acrylic paint, add more paint binder medium versus pigment powder. If you would like a more bold colored acrylic paint, you can definitely add more pigment powder than, say, binder. Ultimately starting with your 1-to-1 ratio though. So here I am swatching out watercolor and acrylic paint in my blue tones. I find it so satisfying knowing that these were mixed from scratch basically for me, and that all of them are long-lasting, archival, and good quality paints. So, and you know, with your watercolors, the kit that you do get, as we covered in week 1, is quite substantial. You get a lot of bang for your buck, and the complete list of mixing instructions allows you to create the paint with confidence, and that is a huge part of it. I'm not sharing any of the proprietary information of their mixing instructions because I do love the company, but every company you purchase pigment powders and binders will have its own set of mixing instructions and recommendations, which I recommend you follow. Basically, know your product, get used to how it works, and then use it with confidence and have a lot of fun with it. So any batch is a great batch, no batch is a wasted batch. If you didn't get a batch to the right mulling or consistency, it's still great paint. Use it in your journal. Maybe you don't use it for art that you sell or gift, but you can use it for art you made. Thanks again, friends.